Good morning. Welcome. I love to see many faces here that I don't know yet. Welcome. We welcome you here. My name is Katie Kingery Page. I'm a member of this fellowship. Whether this is your first visit or your 400th visit to UUFM, you are welcome here. Unitarian Universalism strives to embrace and include all in a loving and caring community, at the same time as we try to create a world that is diverse, hospitable, joyous, and just. Wherever you come from, whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever your journey has been, it has led you here, and we're glad to have you. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan is a vibrant, inclusive congregation. UUFM is widely known as a safe haven and a force in our community for social justice. If you're new to our congregation, please sign our guest book, and we invite you to talk with us after the service. We'd love to get to know you. This Sunday, Reverend Shelley Page, Developmental Minister at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lawrence, leads our service. A graduate of Cornell University and Starr King School for Ministry in Berkeley, she also served congregations in Delaware, Michigan, Utah, and Alaska. A Unitarian Universalist for over 40 years, her lay leadership roles include founding mother, I love that term, founding mother of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua in New York. Her previous careers include marketing and communications management for business and not-for-profit organizations. So we welcome you, Reverend Shelley. Thank you for being here. Now is the time in our service when we acknowledge the land upon which we gather, its ancestors and their descendants. We give our gratitude to members of the Kaw, Osage, and Pawnee nations who cared for this land before being coerced or forced to move. We recognize the 4 federally recognized Native nations who call Kansas home now: the Prairie Band Potawatomi, the Kickapoo Tribe of Kansas, the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, and the Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska. And we recognize the ongoing injustice of settler colonialism and endeavor to make amends in our lives and in the life of our community. In this month, when we ask ourselves, what does it mean to be a people of resistance? May we remember to be vulnerable enough to consider how we may have benefited, even without knowing it, from settler colonialism, and wise enough to acknowledge all the acts of resistance Indigenous people have and still do use to survive and even to thrive amid injustice, great and small. These words from Leanne Simpson, Mishi Sagig Nishnabeg, remind us that the light of resistance can shine inward as much as outward. She writes, "I am always trying to escape from dangerous situations, from racist stereotypes, from environmental destruction in my territory, and from assault on my freedom as an individual and as a member of the Nishnabeg Nation. As an Indigenous person, I have to escape in order to survive, but I don't just escape. I hold this beautiful, rich, Indigenous, decolonial space inside and around me. I am escaping into Indigenous freedom. I am escaping into Indigenous land and my Indigenous body." I'm moved by Leanne Simpson's image of going inward to resist and to find freedom.
Glad to be with you on this Pulpit Exchange Sunday, where your minister, Reverend Isabel Call, is preaching in my congregation over in Lawrence right now. So this is a lovely little tradition. Our chalice will be kindled this morning with the words from Reverend David Breeden, who serves our sibling congregation, First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis. This is an excerpt from an invocation for resistance. There is justice and there's injustice, and there's just us to make justice and love happen. That's what I believe because I'm a free thinker. I believe it's only us together who can save ourselves. I'm going to convoke, C-O-N, with, to call to gather, to call together, to call to get with it. Let's convoke, let's provoke.
Please stand in body or in spirit to sing hymn 1008. It's in the softback hymnal, or you'll see words up here. When your heart is in a holy place. I invite the young, and also the young at heart, to please come forward to participate in our Time for All Ages, led by Reverend Shelley. For those on Zoom, we invite you to participate through the chat.
Yeah. Hi. How are you this morning? So, did you ever have somebody say, you need to say you're sorry? Has that ever happened to you? Okay. Did anybody else here ever have to say, I'm sorry? Yeah, okay. So we're just going to do a little voting here, a little experiment. So I'm going to say I'm sorry in some different ways, and you're going to go, yeah, that was great way to do I'm sorry. Or no, that's not such a good way. Or, oh, I'm not sure. So let's just try this. How about let's say I just did something wrong and I really needed to say I'm sorry, and I just said, I'm sorry. Yeah. Or how about, I guess I'm sorry. Yeah. Or how about, well, I'm sorry. I know I always goof up. It's about me. It's all about me. I'm sorry. Yeah. And how about, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And so how many of us have had different versions of that I'm sorry said to us? Yeah. And how did it feel?
Not very good.
Exactly, not very good. But believe it or not, we all goof up from time to time. We say something or do something that hurts someone else's feelings. Maybe we're careless and we make a mistake and we break something that was important to someone else. You should definitely say sorry for that. Exactly. And sometimes we just don't even realize that we've done something wrong, but we still need to say, I'm sorry. So luckily, there have been some people thinking about how to say, I'm sorry. And so there is actually a formula that I'm going to share with you. It's almost like a little magic thing. I think everybody got one of these it's almost, think of it as a QR code for saying I'm sorry. So because there is a way to really say you're sorry. You say, you acknowledge what you're sorry for, because that tells the person you really know how you screwed up. So you would say, I'm sorry for breaking that thing. I'm sorry because I hurt your feelings. So, yeah, it sounds like a voice of experience. Sorry for breaking the train. There we go. And then also to acknowledge it was wrong, why it was wrong. Why is that important? Because it tells the person that you know how it was important to them, and also that you really were listening to them. So this is, I'm sorry, because I knew that train was a very important thing because your grandfather gave it to you. It was also, or whatever, right? And then, but it could also be, I'm sorry because I know that you've been having a really hard time lately, and it was very insensitive of me to make that remark about whatever it was. Okay. So it acknowledges the person's, what do we say as Unitarian Universalists? Their inherent worth and dignity, right? But the next one is making a promise, and it's saying with all honesty and all sincerity, in the future, I want to do better on this. I'm going to pay better attention to my words, or I'm going to be less careless when I'm going through your house, or whatever is needed to be said, right? And then the last part of this is, and don't break a train. And the last part is an important question that you can ask the other person. And it's totally up to the other person to answer. What do you think it would be? How are you essentially, how are you feeling? And it's like, will you forgive me? Because you know what? And how are you feeling is actually a way of checking in with forgiveness. It's like, are we good with each other? Are we okay with each other now? Do we forgive each other? So this is your little QR code for forgiveness, for saying I'm sorry, because we all need reminders from time to time. And this is just a little tiny one that you can tuck into your pocket, into your wallet, tuck it, put it on your refrigerator, wherever you need to remind yourself how to really say, I'm sorry. So I think you all are going to be going off to classes, but Katie's got some words about that. And she's got them for you.
Our kids are now moving back to the religious education classes with Sandy, our director of religious education. That's down the hall in the Alsop room. And our nursery is also open for our youngest. Soul Kids is a group for kindergarten through 5th grade. Youth group is 6th grade and up. And after class, we'll all join up together for social time. As a reminder, parents, don't forget to pick up your kids at noon. If they've been in the nursery, please help pick up the toys. Thank you. Here at UUFM, the offering we receive on Sunday morning goes to a special organization each month. Is the mic not good? No. Oh, okay. Our April Helping Hands recipient is the Fairy Godmothers, who offer grants to women in need of basic supplies or home repairs in the Manhattan area. You can donate online by going to uufm.net, then clicking the donate link and choosing the particular fund to which you want to contribute. If you're here in person, you can put your offerings in the basket at the back. I'd also like to invite everyone here, as well as our friends on Zoom, and there's several of them, use this time to share your joys and sorrows of the week. You can write these on the paper under the seat in front of you for me to read, or you can type something in the chat for Kathleen Oldfather to read. If you're here in the sanctuary, Lindsay Smith will walk by to pick up your joys and sorrows. Let's take a moment to share the burdens of our sorrows and to amplify the joys of our congregation. I invite you to create a space in your heart of tolerance, compassion, and vulnerability. Here in the sanctuary, 3 people chose to share, and the first is a joy from Susan Adamchak. Thanks for sharing this, Susan. I have a joy that the nephew of one of our Afghan allies has been admitted to KSU for the fall semester. I have a sorrow in that we don't yet know a clear way to get him out of Afghanistan. Another person has shared, I've been rejected this week more times than I can count. Sandy Nelson has shared that her daughter Lily spent 6 hours in the emergency room Friday night and was admitted to the hospital in the wee hours of Saturday morning. Please send calm and healing thoughts her way. We're hoping for discharge in 1 or 2 days. And Diane Barker has shared the fire department put out an out-of-control fire before it got to her house, which I'm sure is something of a joy. Our fire control people have been sorely taxed this season and deserve our thanks and respect. Yes. I'd like to ask Kathleen Oldfather now to share if there are any joys, concerns, or sorrows coming in through the Zoom.
Good morning. We have a couple of joys from Lauren and Lynn, and they said that they're glad to be learning from Jessica Sievers how to use events on Facebook to help us save the scenic route to Manhattan on McDowell Creek Road. From an Evergy substation proposed for a site across the road from the entrance to the Kanza Prairie and the Ashland Cemetery. And Lauren also has a joy that his brother is coming to visit for a week from Buffalo, New York. And that's all that was shared today.
Let's share a moment of silence together to reflect on all that's been shared here, as well as those things that may remain in our hearts unshared.
This morning, I'd love to teach you a chant. This is one that I've known for many years, and it's one that we sing from time to time in Lawrence during this same time in our service when we're holding all these joys and sorrows in our hearts. The words are really simple. Love, 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 love. People, we are made for love. Love each other as yourself, for we are one. So I'm going to sing it through, and then I'm going to keep singing it, and I invite you to join in as you catch on, which I know you will. If I can sing it, anybody can sing it. Love, 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 love. People, we are made for love. Love each other as yourself, for we are one. Love, 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 love. People, we are made for love. Love each other as yourself, for we are one. Love, 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 love. People, we are made for love. Love each other as yourself, for we are one. Our readings today come from my colleague, Reverend Sean Parker Dennison, who is one of our transgender ministers serving our sibling congregation out in Ashland, Oregon. Sean is also quite an accomplished poet and has he published one of the more recent meditation manuals published by the UUA. In that most recent book of poetry, I was taken with a particular set of two poems that actually in the book, one is written about halfway through, and the other one is shared about 20 pages later. One is called A Letter to Our Better Angels, and the other one is A Letter from Our Better Angels. And so this morning, Dick and Sylvia will bring this reading to life.
Dear angels, it seems important to begin by making it clear that we are not talking about celestial winged beings. This letter is addressed instead to our better selves, the people we hope we will be when necessary. We might also note that we more often excel at our self-appointed role as advocate for the devil, a requisite position that is also, if you ask us, not literal but theoretical, and therefore without consequence. We are writing to let you know that we feel your presence is insufficient and unpredictable, and when we inquire about how to make you more dependable, we are offended by and opposed to the level of accountability that is expected of us. We are hoping to make arrangements for an increase in the percentage of goodness and the presence of admirable qualities in ourselves and in others, especially in others. We respectfully request that this come easily, with immediate delivery, a bulletproof warranty, and at no extra cost. We would be even more pleased if it could be arranged for us to become better people without needing to change or to consider any needs but our own. It would also please us if our status as increasingly good could be noted in some way, perhaps with the reward of a cookie or a badge or a halo, as long as it isn't painful. We hope you will consider our request as soon as humanly possible, not on angel time. We have already waited a long time. You seem unaware of the seriousness of the situation, the disrepair to our reputation. Please expedite our request. We have only just noticed the world is ending. Sincerely, a concerned mortal.
Dear one, we have received your letter, and we hate to tell you, well, not hate so much, but are a bit afraid to say, we cannot grant your requests as stated, but can only remind you of familiar things. First, faith. Faith in yourself and trust in others. We know it can be terrifying to be vulnerable, but only when you share your softest side will we be able to break through. Next, hope. Hope is not an empty fairy tale. It is the true story of all times. Human beings like you have found a way to create the future, though you did not know how. And of course, love. Love that demands you cherish all people, not just yourself and your own safety. Love that is not satisfied until every argument ends abruptly when one child says, "That hurts." There is so much to learn and relearn. The world teaches you to be hard, to negotiate, to defend, to avoid giving too much and to the wrong people. There are no wrong people. you also are not wrong. And when you encounter the poor, the broken, the unhoused, and unwelcome, you are looking, if you pay attention, at us, calling to you, calling you to answer your own prayers. If you want to change the world, first, be sure you are changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace, be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free.
So I start this sermon with a confession. Now, you must know that I grew up Roman Catholic, so I don't say the word confession lightly. But I do have a confession to make, because this is something I did. This was about a month ago, and I was in a wonderful Zoom meeting with our Welcoming Renewal team, the team that is having our congregation work on truly welcoming LGBTQIA+ people within the congregation and the wider community, but especially within the congregation. And so we were planning, I was coaching this team about them leading the worship service that last Sunday in March, which tied in with Transgender Day of Visibility. So in this meeting were a variety of people, but including some of our new transgender, is it problem? Okay, new transgender members who were very excited to be doing this worship service. We had a wonderful meeting. They had great ideas, and it was a great service, by the way. And they were, we were winding up the meeting, and I casually said, oh, you know, I wish that my trans nephew, Cade, could be here to hear this service with that you're going to do. It's going to be so wonderful. Cade lives, though, in Westchester County, New York, and it's not going to be possible for him to be with us, and he wouldn't do the Zoom thing, but I just know in his heart he would be so into this if we could magically transport him. And then I went on to tell a little anecdote about how Cade was born a girl with a girl's name that I said, and told a little bit about our family's journey in supporting Cade, who is now, by the way, a person in his mid-30s, so we're not talking about a child here anymore. And it was a poignant story, and it's my family's story. It's my story to tell about my nephew. But as I am finishing up my story, I'm reading the room on Zoom, the Hollywood squares, and I'm seeing this pained look on the face of Jackie, one of my transgender members. And Jackie says, Reverend Shelley, I just want you to know that it's really hurtful to dead name someone, and you dead named your nephew. And if that had been me, that you had dead named, I would be really upset right now. So I just wanted you to know that, because I don't think you were aware that you did that. And I was like, whoa, you are so right, Jackie. I did that. I should know better. And thank you so much for reminding me that I did that. I apologize. I'm sorry, because I know that that is difficult and painful for transgender people. And I will try my best to not do this in the future. Will you forgive me? Does that sound familiar? And of course, Jackie was like, wow, I was heard. I was heard. And we ended the meeting with a virtual hug for everybody. And it was good. End of confession. Dead naming. Thank you. Okay. Little transgender education here, because we're all learning. And when I mean all, I mean I'm including myself. So when someone has gone through an official time of changing from one gender to another, or to be considering themselves non-binary, and it includes a name change. Sometimes people don't change names because they have names that are kind of androgynous, or names that can go like in any direction that don't have human gender associations. All that said is that if a person's original name was Bill and they're now Jackie, or fill in the blank, whoever it is, to continue to call that person Bill is dead naming them. To continue to refer to them by the name that they previously had, and that is referred to as dead naming, because that identity is dead to them. And when people persist on referring to them, even in stories that were filled with love and joy, about how my mother, who was an incredibly prejudiced person in many ways, she fully accepted this nephew going, oh, honey, I knew this from the time you were a toddler. You know, there were a lot of really wonderful, heartfelt moments, but because I had specifically talked about my nephew with his original name from birth, that was dead naming. Sure, thank you for asking the question. And by the way, this is well, I've got this mic. This is exactly why we're doing welcoming renewal in our congregation, because we all continue to learn. And even if we consider ourselves a welcoming congregation, we have our rainbow flag out and we use the rainbow version of the UUA logo and all of that. It is how people interact with one another that makes a place truly welcoming. And so even asking people, now, what was your real name? Okay, get it? Get it? You know? So, yeah. So that's why we're doing this as UUs. All around the country, congregations are engaging in this work of renewing their status as welcoming congregations. And part of that is having that special service, but also having these kind of conversations. So thank you for bringing that up. So let's just unpack that experience for a little bit here. It is a classic example of a microaggression. Columbia University professor Darrell Wing Su defines microaggressions as brief, everyday exchanges that send denigrating messages to individuals because of their group membership. These exchanges can occur in verbal, behavioral, or environmental form and communicate subtle messages of hostility, degradation, or insult based on the target's race, gender, sexual orientation, class, ability, body type, ethnicity, age, national heritage, or religion. In other words, all the isms. These exchanges typically happen unintentionally, and without conscious awareness on the part of the perpetrator. Well, I was like totally that person. It is an unknowing, invisible thing in the moment, but nonetheless immediately felt by those affected. Microaggressions come in different forms. Sometimes it's a micro insult, communicating stereotypes or rudeness or insensitivity toward an embodiment of human difference, whether it's race or gender or any of those other things I mentioned. So what I said in that meeting was a micro insult, and so is misgendering people, especially if you repeatedly misgender people. And I know it's hard because, if you've known somebody for most of their life as this person and now they're this person, but they're asking you to see them as this person. And if you continue to misgender them, that's a microaggression. Another one is micro-invalidation that denies the validity of personal experience for people in marginalized groups. So think of comments that invalidate, negate, or exclude thoughts, feelings, or experiences of others that subtly define the reality of privilege. Let me give you an example. A colleague of mine was conducting a workshop at a church that I previously served. He was teaching about implicit and explicit bias. He also happens to be of Chinese Filipino descent, third generation American. Well, after the Saturday workshop, it was one of those all-day workshops where most of the congregation came, but of course not everybody was there. And so, but the next day he gave a forum lecture on Sunday before worship. And a person in the congregation who did not attend the workshop the previous day was interviewing him kind of like talk show style. In fact, this person was a journalist professionally, so that was his calling. He's asking questions, and the congregant asks my colleague where he was from, and he answers, Los Angeles. And the congregant said, no, where are you really from? Yeah. Everyone in the congregation had the exact same thing and now my colleague used just a bit of humor to deflect the situation and said, well, California? And rather than embarrass this congregant in public, he moved on with grace and humor, and we had a little conversation afterwards. But the microaggression had occurred, and we had all witnessed it, just like you all got that instantly. Microaggression. Another kind of microaggression is a micro-assault. Now, these aren't unintentional, but often callous and sometimes even calculated. For example, it is the deliberate telling of a sexist or racist joke in the presence of the target because there's an assumption that everyone gets it. Everyone gets it, and no one's going to hold them accountable. Actually, friends, this is a form of bullying. It truly is. How many of us have ever been targeted that way? How many women in the room have ever been in the presence of men telling sexist jokes? Yeah. And I'm imagining, I know I'm saying that we all, but I'm looking around the room and I'm noticing that most of us appear, and I'm saying appear because I don't know everyone's background, to be white people. How many of us have been in the presence of people telling racist jokes when somebody of color is right in earshot? Yeah. I mean, this happens. And so we know that these microaggressions happen every dang day. And yet we resist responsibility for dealing with them. And the thing is that often, if called on it, people who just committed the microaggression will often deny it. They'll say, oh, I didn't say that. Yeah, you did, buddy. But even though it was said, it was such an unconscious moment that they truly think that they really didn't say that. Yeah. Or they claim it to be unintentional. It's that old road to hell thing, right? Oh, I didn't mean it like that. Well, that's actually a pretty common response. Or perhaps there's even the defensive posture. But you know I'm not a prejudiced person. Not me. You know me. This resistance to taking responsibility further hurts the targeted person as they hear these denials and these defenses instead of an honest gosh darn apology. Yeah. So here's the deal. It's all too easy for any of us, and I mean any of us, to commit these microaggressions. It's that invisible, unintentional action that adds up to numerous encounters for marginalized people, or as some would say, death by 1,000 cuts. Microaggressions are filled with double meanings. There's overt messages at odds with the hidden ones. So messages intended to be positive, like my story about my nephew, send out a subtly derogatory message that's entirely unintended. But the impact is felt, notably, definitely, and hurtfully. And here's another example of an interaction from another congregation. A middle-aged white professional class gay man is enjoying coffee hour when a friend comes up to him and says, "I'm so glad that you're the example of a gay guy this church has. You're just so normal. And that will help other people be more accepting of gay people." Woo! It's like, yeah, I mean, these are real people who've said these real things. I'm not making up stories here. So what is the subtext there? Gay people are abnormal. There's alarm bells of all kinds there. And yet when confronted with such a statement, the targeted person in the moment isn't even sure how to respond to that, because they don't want to be accused of being overly sensitive or maybe even paranoid. And they can even start doubting themselves, like, did that guy really just say that? So think of the cascading feelings that guy had in coffee hour. What will happen if I confront this person? How will it affect my relationship with them? Will my physical or psychological safety be compromised if I say something? If I don't confront the person, how will I feel? And how will it affect me in the future? Oh man, that's a lot to deal with holding a cup of coffee in coffee hour. A lot of emotional calculus to do. Now just think, if you're a person who has different kinds of identities, needing to experience that cascade of feelings on a regular basis. Not good. It can eat away at your integrity, leaving you feel sad, angry, frustrated, embarrassed, uncomfortable, unsafe, and even filled with shame. It's utterly exhausting and utterly not in our alignment with our Unitarian Universalist values, as microaggressions actively devalue someone's inherent worth and dignity. So here in this countercultural learning lab, better known as the UU Fellowship of Manhattan, you have a chance to do better. Microaggressions will happen. It's a fact. And we can all say that we vow to never do it again. And guess what? It happens just like it happened to me at that meeting. It's what we do about it next that matters, because we can do better. So how might we do that? So let's just talk about this from both sides of the exchange. First, if you feel that a microaggression has been lobbed in your direction, you can calmly but firmly interrupt the flow of the conversation instead of just absorbing it and going into all those cascading feelings. Use your I statements, saying something like, "Ouch, I'm concerned about what you just said." Doesn't have to be angry. or accusatory, just like, ouch. Letting the person know that something's off here. And then explain how it affected you. Now, Jackie modeled that perfectly by letting me know how dead naming was hurtful and explaining it from her perspective. But think of all the different ways that something might happen. You are empowered. You can do that. Now, what if you're the one who did it? That's the oops. It's slowing down, reading the room, noticing the impact you've just had on that other person, and admitting immediately, I've messed up here. I am sorry I said that. I can see how it's hurtful. Thanks for calling me in on this. I appreciate you sharing with me. I hope we're good with each other. I hope you can forgive me. We can move forward together in a good way because I value you. You're important to me, and I've learned something today. It is said that the congregation is the curriculum. I like to think of UU congregations as loving learning labs, becoming more mindful about microaggressions on both sides of the interactions is wonderful personal and community work to do. Now, over in Lawrence, the congregation is working on their first ever covenant of right relations as part of their developmental ministry work together. So that made me very curious to know if your congregation has that kind of covenant. So lo and behold, right there on your website, I found one. And there are some words that speak very directly to this matter of microaggressions. The first 3 bullet points in your covenant of right relations are: we value each person's worth and welcome people of all ages to participate in fellowship life. Okay. We gather to support each other in our personal and community growth. And it says, our congregational life provides opportunities to practice working together cooperatively and in friendship, keeping the greater good of the whole at heart. We approach each other with goodwill, allowing for mistakes, and with the expectation that we will forgive each other. Good on you guys. You did some work. Now I know this work was done a while ago, but it's worth dusting off and looking at. Because a behavioral covenant is meant to be a collective expression of how you wish to live together in community in alignment with your Unitarian Universalist values. It's not about words on a piece of paper or tucked in an obscure place on your website, but rather a living commitment, a touchstone, a way to be together, whether dealing with microaggressions, impersonal interactions, or importantly, addressing whatever challenges you'll be encountering along your journey together, where there's bound to be some disagreements and different perspectives and tensions to work through. As one person in my congregation put it, when we had a recent workshop on covenants, they said, let's be hard on problems, but soft on people. I liked that. And so you all have an expression of your values, your behaviors, your loving good intentions to form the basis for practicing in this place of vulnerable learning, a place where those better angels can sit on your shoulder and say, yes, faith, hope, and love are happening here. Where those angels sing, how could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice how your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. May it be so. And happy learning. Another gosh darn learning experience. Yeah. Let's close out by singing How Could Anyone, which is number 1053 in softcover hymnal, if you're using that, but otherwise the words will be on the, I was going to say screen, but it's really on the wall. This is a beautiful affirmation of our core value of love, and it was written by a person who is a close friend, frequent attender at the Anchorage Unitarian Universalist congregation that I served just prior to coming to Kansas. So please rise as you're comfortable to sing How Could Anyone? We'll sing it through twice together. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. We close today with the words of our better angels. If you want to change the world, first be sure you're changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace, be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free. Blessings for the journey.
Thank you, Reverend Shelley. Please stay for coffee and conversation. You can join others in the ALSUP room. As you move into your week, I want to give you a few announcements. Don't forget to support our UUFM presence at Little Apple Pride Festival on Saturday, April 22nd in City Park. We've got to get out there, show our pride and support. The world needs our rainbow joy and solidarity, especially right now. And the latest I'd heard, others may have updates, we still need help with setup at 11 a.m. Contact Amy Betts. We need help staffing tables 3:30 to 6, and we need help with takedown. For that, you can contact Tom Phillips. Also, please note that next week, April 23rd, the UUFM annual meeting will occur following the Sunday service. And I want to just reiterate something you may have seen in the announcement slides. An important 4-part series begins tomorrow, Monday, concerning the threat of Christian nationalism to American democracy and culture. The UUFM Social Action Committee has purchased a link for the congregation to all 4 events from the Kansas Interfaith Action. All the events are 6:30 to 8 p.m. April 17th, tomorrow, Monday, April 18th, Tuesday, then again, Monday and Tuesday, May 1st and May 2nd. You should have seen an email go out through UUFM Google Groups with that link. It will be sent again tomorrow, just in case. You can contact Kathy Swenson if you don't see it in your email or if you have questions. Go in peace. Oh, question right now. Susan Adamchak gave us another reminder that Friday is Grow Green Match Day with the Greater Manhattan Community Foundation. And the donations that are matched can be made online or Colony Square in person. Great, thank you. Any other announcements from the group? Okay. Go in peace. Thank you.
They'll come up, they'll go on and we'll come up.